Well, and I knew that, I mean, this is a kind of a bit of a Protestant perspective of like, this whole like life is suffering type of thing. But it's like, okay, like, I'm going to suffer either way because like I don't have there wasn't an easy path for me to take.
Right.
Like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to give up and I'm going to, oh wait, there's nothing for me to fucking do because I was obsessed with music. Mm-hmm. I was obsessed with, art and like, just my personal interests. That's where my brain was. And it's like, there wasn't something to just give up and, because, even the things that like aren't creative in Windsor that like, oh, you could just work at one of the, auto plants or something. Mm-hmm. It's like, I didn't have any connections. My family wasn't like that. It's like, you got to have a family connection to get those places. Mm-hmm. So it seemed very obvious to me that like, I'm going to suffer either way in life. So I'm either going to suffer for the things that I want, and maybe I can, in the end, get what I want, or I can suffer trying to make other people happy. And then I can get those things and like, I'm still going to be miserable when I get those things because it's not what I want.
It's amazing to me that you had that perspective so early, because I quite honestly, and spent my entire life sort of in the pursuits of arts, for lack of a better term, only came to that fucking conclusion 2 years ago. And took me this entire time to come up, and until you come up with that exact idea, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because everything else, for like, to put it in contrast, not to make this about me, but to put it in contrast, my entire life, it was like, okay, well, there's these things I want to do, but like, I don't want to hurt for it.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not going to hurt for it, you're not going to fucking have it.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. It's so interesting to me that you came to that conclusion at such a young age.
Yeah.
Do you have any perspective on why you were able to sort of like, is that a thing that mom and dad talked about? Is that
this still comes from my religious father, that he was like at the end of high school for me, he was like, like, just ask God what he wants you to do. And, you choose your path. And, you just make those decisions and, ask God what he wants you to do. Mm-hmm. And he'll open the doors.
It's funny because you specifically just talking about it in that manner kind of brings me around to one of you were saying before that, like, you consider yourself agnostic, but you have no like disrespect for the religion. And that's another thing that took me a while to come back around on. But like, I think that's one of the things that gets lost in that religious, anti-religious debate, is the idea that at the end of the day, you can say what you want about the organizations, but the thought process behind whatever you call whichever religion is basically just like, how do you explain the world?
They're metaphors.
Yeah.
I think that the Bible and whatever are great as metaphors when you start looking at it as a history book.
Right.
And like, or you start misinterpreting the metaphors as something very fucking literal.
Right.
And you suck all the value out of it that way. It's like, if you just try and read the stories and then smoke a joint and think about it a different way.
Right.
And, open about what it's trying to tell you.
Right.
But for me, it doesn't work as a history book.
Yeah.
But as just stories that, to think about life a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of these stories can contradict themselves just like life, Well, yeah. That's the truth of the yin yang, It's just like, are things this way or are things this way? They're both.
Yeah,
at the same time.
It's perspective at the end of the day, just like everything else.
Yeah.
It's incredibly interesting to me that you were able to come to all of those conclusions so young. And it's sort of because of a thing that you end up walking away from later on. It's just the kind of going back to what we were talking about before we started recording. Every day I'm confronted with the idea that life is just stupid.
Yeah.
Right?
Our full audio episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you find your audio podcasts. The full episodes, highlights, and our live off-the-floor performance videos can be found at our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the AVB Podcast. Of course, you'll find links to our incredible sponsors and this week's guest in the description below. The AVB Podcast is part of the Border City Network. Find more great content at bordercitynetwork.com. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.